But I was drinking to not remember to black out, I wasn't ever just drinking for fun, really. And I knew that. I knew that because no one around me was getting as drunk as I was. And, and I didn't really care. I was just, as long as I can remember, too, from around that time, that teenage time, I was always been very self-destructive. Just kind of, I would run on these really high highs and then real low lows. I always thought I'd go to school and do all these different things, go to college, get a really good job, but then, I just couldn't deal with the death of my mom. I feel like that's what kind of really sparked my depression. And I hadn't really recovered from that for a long time, so my drinking just kind of spiraled. I resented my family for whatever reason. I mean, I look back on it now, and they all just tried to love me and try to understand me. But I just, really shut everybody out, and included when I moved to Oregon for a while. I was kind of moved there about twice in my life, just kind of kept trying to get out of Bakersfield. And every time it was, again, I'm constantly drinking and doing drugs and not really having any kind of clear direction and always using it as a crutch to be social. I couldn't go anywhere without drinking. Let's put it that way. Like, I didn't want to imagine going out with friends and there's not being drinking involved. Like, then I'm not interested. It was awful to say, but it's the truth, and just using that as a way just to cope with reality, with other people, even with myself especially. And when I moved to Oregon, I met someone there that I ended up beginning a relationship with, and they were living outside, drinking a lot as well. Again, at the time, it was like, wow, it's such a romantic kind of life. So I didn't know what I was doing. I was actually homeless in Oregon anyway to begin with. So it's like, why not have someone, someone cool to travel with and to live outside with, because I don't know what I'm doing. I have no money. I'm just drinking anyways. I'm just trying to do the same thing too, just kind of not have any responsibility because I'm not worth anything. I'm just going to mess everything up anyway. Why start a job? Why start trying to, get a house and all these things in this new place? So I spent 2 years living outside in the streets, all the way up and down California and Oregon and a little bit of Washington. It was a really wild time of my life, really reckless time of my life. Hitchhiking, drinking with strangers, passing out in the streets, basically living in the gutter, sleeping outside of stores, sleeping in public parks. Just a really, really intense time. My depression, at an all-time high, just, again, not having enough self-respect for myself to even, reach out to my family. Meanwhile, they're worried, they haven't heard from me for months. And I come from a great family. We've always been very close. So they're worried, they're trying to reach out to my friends, but no one knows where I am. I'm out in the middle of the highway with my thumb up, no one knowing where I am. But, I think back on that time and why I never reached out to my family was because there's a lot of shame there. To report that I'm, still living outside, still drinking a lot and doing drugs and, not knowing what I'm doing next or where I'm going. And then it was a Christmas time, or it was actually Thanksgiving time, in Berkeley, People's Park. And something in me, it's always a really intense time, being out on the streets, I've noticed. It's just, the holidays are hard for everybody, whether you are housed or whether you, live unhoused. And that one in particular just got me. It seemed like the emotions were running high for everyone. I don't know if it was just because it was me especially. My emotions were running high. I just started to kind of come to this realization of what am I doing? I need to try to start living a life like that I had kind of tried to plan to live. Maybe go back to school. Maybe go, start working again. Maybe reconnect with my family and start to rebuild. And maybe I'm going to try to stop drinking. Maybe I'm going to go home and I'm going to really try to give this whole life thing a real try. So I moved back home. Thankfully, my sister, being literally my angel on earth, allowed me and the gentleman I was traveling with to move in with them and try to start rebuilding life. Meanwhile, he's drinking. I'm not, trying to work. Got my old job back that I had worked at during, before I had moved to Oregon originally. I'm going to give it a good old try. we move into our own place eventually because we're working, and I start drinking again. It didn't take long. It was like literally probably a matter of a month or something, you know. And I'm just drinking again heavily. I'm doing drugs again. I'm, you know, going to work and stuff, but I'm going to work drunk. I'm going straight from the bar. I'm coming straight, you know, because I worked at 3 a.m. sometimes, you know, in a bakery, and it's like I was just going through the motions so that on paper I looked good to my family. Like, hey, I'm working, you know? But meanwhile, they don't know that I'm going to, you know, little parties for little kids in my family, high or drunk, you know, or just counting down until I can get to a bar. I was very kind of quiet to my family about it. I was always trying to make this facade because that's something I realized in myself that I, you know, want to please them now that I'm, you know, back, and I'm trying so hard, and I don't know that I was fooling anybody, but, you know, and meanwhile, I moved back to Oregon. We finally raised enough money, me and my partner, and we moved back to Oregon, and, you know, drinking, again, all-time high still, I never really stopped, somehow managed to get myself back to Oregon, and was getting way more into just different drugs like Adderall, and just a lot of cocaine, and just, my life's now in this weird season where both me and the person I was living with was just in this deep, dark depression. I lived there for like a year. There was a house fire that I was in at one of my houses, and all these things. It was the year of 2018, so I didn't get sober till October that year. In April that year, we had a house fire that kind of, you know, we all obviously had to move out of this house, and just different things that I realized God was trying to tell me. Not knowing that I was kind of starting to open up this spot in my heart for God, because I never really believed in Him. I was on and off believer, you know. To me, He'd been real cruel to me in my life, so how could He exist, you know? If He does, He doesn't like me. But, you know, all these things were just signifying, you need to go home. Like, you can't do this. You've been doing this for way too long. Look where you are. You've accomplished nothing. At this point, I don't even have a license. I'm 28 years old, no license. Just, you never went back to school, like you said, or you tried. I think I tried to go to college like 4 times and dropped out. And every time, you know, deep down, obviously, I knew that I wanted something more out of life, but I wasn't doing it. And I was very, very stagnant and very, very depressed, and putting myself in very dangerous situations, like staying at the bar by myself and not having a way to get home, so I'd walk, but then I don't know where I am, and I'm blacked out, and I'll come, you know, all these different situations it was October 10th, so the day before my sobriety date. I was drunk. I was at home by myself. I was playing on my guitar, and then just before, I honestly don't remember what song I was playing. I wish I did, because, you know, kind of probably be my song. But I just start bawling. I just start crying. I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I am not well, clearly. I haven't been well. If you're out there, I literally cried out to God, like, if you're there, if you exist, I need you. My sister had always kind of tried to show me God throughout my time in my addiction, but I always just denied it and just blocked her out. But she'd been praying for me at home back in Bakersfield, and so had her husband, and all this, and everything just kind of signified. Her husband texted me out of the blue asking, "Are you okay?" Like 2 days after this, and I was like, how did he know that I was not okay? But okay, and I was like, not really, actually. And, you know, at this time I was 2 days sober, because the next day I was going to not drink anymore. I wasn't going to do any drugs either. I was about 2 days sober, and I was like, no, not really, actually. I've been don't know where this came from, but I said I was thinking about moving home. And, again, that's not me, because I would never move home. I'm not strong enough at that time. I didn't think I was strong enough to move home because of the shame, because of all of that. The relationship I was in was not good at all. We were more like roommates at this point, both very depressed, too depressed to ever be in any kind of relationship, but there we were living together. And I decided, you know, I messaged him, my sister called me right away, and I was like, yeah, I'm serious. I think I need to move home. I want to stay sober. Like that said Allie barely ever in her life. And so, you know, before I knew it, it was December. It took me a little time I kept going back and forth, you know, I'm not going to move anywhere. I'm just going to see if things will work out here. I'm going to try to make it work. And then December happens, and I move home. And, you know, since then, my life it felt like a fog. It feels like I was in this like fog when I got home. I was just like, this is unreal. Like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, I actually did it. Like, I moved with everything I could carry on myself on a train and moved back to Bakersfield, Oregon. And, trying to rebuild my life. Thankfully, again, my sister to the rescue. Her and her husband let me move in with them. And, I asked to start going to their church. I was like, I want to go to your church because I felt him working, And they're like, oh okay. Like, yeah, we'll take you. So the first Sunday I was home, I started going to Story Church here in Bakersfield and never stopped. Even when I couldn't make service, I still go and I help set up because this church helped save my life. Well, it was God, obviously, but they helped lead me there because they'd been praying for me before I'd even moved home. I didn't know that until I moved here, and my sister's like, yep, the worship team here, we've been praying for you. The pastors, they've been, just keeping you in our prayers, not that you would even move home, but that you would, that if you weren't well, like Aaron just had this feeling, my brother-in-law, that you weren't well, and I don't know how, but again, God, it's a God thing for sure. It's the only way I can explain it, because there's really no other way. But since then, I was kind of just going to church the first couple months, and then in February I reached out to one of the women in our women's group who I knew was in and out of recovery rooms and stuff, and I was just like, hey, which is so not like me, because remember, I need alcohol to be social. So I was just like, I really am been feeling kind of like unsteady in my sobriety. I've been feeling like I'm kind of slipping back into that mentality, that depression state, that state of hopelessness. Like, I think I need support. Like, I don't, which again is so not like me. I need help. And so she brought me to my first meeting of recovery, and it was a faith-based group. So it was perfect for me because I was really trying to plug into church and really reconnect with God. And since then, I've just continued to try to stay in rooms. That one's one of my favorite. It's because it was the room that got me introduced to this community that I'm a part of now. And a few months later, I started working with a sponsor. And, I'm on step 4. Step 3 was amazing. But I feel like I have a weird story because I kind of had step 3 the night before I decided I was going to be sober, I felt like, because that's when I felt him the most. Of course, my step 3 with my sponsor was really powerful too, but that feeling people get in their step 3, I always think back to that day that I called out to him and was just literally felt like I was being lifted by him, and other people somehow didn't know who they were, but other people, and it's the people I now know. It's been amazing since then, and I got my license. I got a job in recovery, which again, I got only from God, because our pastor works in mental health and kind of linked me up with this place after hearing my story and was like, you could help others, like, with your story. And I was like, well, you gotta go to school to work in mental health. Like, you gotta have a degree. But little did I know, my credentials were the fact that, was my life experience. And that's really helped me and kept me accountable. And the people in my recovery groups keep me accountable, and just the people I've met and people I'm still meeting, and just my family, thank God for them, and the people in my church, and just it's been a long road to get here, but wow, even though it was challenging, it was worth it. I'm gonna say it was worth it. Yeah, that's kind of it in a long nutshell, kind of.
Oh man, both your stories are just amazing. What I really like to touch on real quick is you mentioned it's been a long road. It's been a long journey, and it's never ever too late. Never. Yeah. You can't be too old. You can't be too far gone. God loves you, and God's given us the ability to walk into the rooms, to say, "Hey, I think I need help." And that's it. Just the willingness takes us to that mountaintop, right? And so that's what I'm hearing is this mountaintop. And I don't believe in the mountaintop experience, and you come down the mountain and you're like, oh, and then you fight the rest of the time spiritually to get back to that mountaintop. Yeah. We're supposed to have that mountaintop every morning. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be rekindled with our higher power on a regular. And I think that just us coming together, even in a church on Sunday morning, the other times that you and I, the three of us are together,
Yeah.
I'm at that mountaintop